And when one American life was lost at the hands of Iranian-backed militias just a few short weeks ago, President Trump launched the first air strikes against Iranian-backed militias in 10 years. And when militants stormed our embassy in Baghdad, President Trump sent in the Marines, secured our embassy, and this president said, "No more Benghazis."
Well, so much for the Trump administration's claims that it struck Iranian General Qasem Soleimani because of a, quote, imminent threat. Because here we have Mike Pence admitting in front of a stadium full of people that the express reason for Trump's strike against Iran was because, quote, one American life was lost at the hands of Iranian-backed militias just a few short weeks ago, resulting in, quote, POTUS launching the first airstrikes against them in 10 years. In other words, this wasn't about an imminent threat from Iran, it was about retaliation. More specifically, a disproportionate response wherein one American life was lost, to quote Mike Pence, and so we took action that may very well spark a war. I mean, he didn't even try to make it moderately vague. This is clear-cut causation spelled out in front of thousands of people and broadcast on national television. Because what would this administration be if not undermining its own talking points on a daily basis? And what makes this even more shocking is the fact that basically 24 hours earlier, administration officials convened senators from both parties for a private briefing to try and convince them that Trump's strike was in response to an imminent threat from Iran. In other words, Pence's admission is proof that the administration lied to the faces of even senators in their own party. Because part of being a Republican in the Trump era is that it's not enough to be party to the moral bankruptcy of the modern GOP, you also have to contract every shred of dignity you have to a White House that will steamroll right over you the second it becomes convenient. Granted, it's not like the senators bought any of it in the first place. Even Republicans left the briefing fuming because administration officials refused to give them the time of day, much less offer any semblance of a justification of an imminent threat.
I still haven't had the questions answered that I came into that briefing expecting to ask. They left after 75 minutes. Now, I understand these are busy people. They've got a lot of demands on their time. They're appearing before a coordinate branch of government responsible for their funding, for their confirmation, for any approval of any military action they might undertake. And they had to leave after 75 minutes while they're in the process of telling us that we need to be good little boys and girls and run along and not debate this in public. I find that absolutely insane. I think it's unacceptable. And so I don't know what they had in mind. I went in there hoping to get more specifics as far as the factual, legal, moral justification for what they did. I'm still undecided on that issue, in part because we never got to the details. Every time we got close, they'd say, well, we can't discuss that here because it's really sensitive. We're in a skiff. We're in a secure underground bunker where all electronic devices have to be checked at the door, and they still refuse to tell us. I find that really upsetting.
Of course, even before the briefing, it was abundantly clear that the White House was decidedly incapable of offering any decent rationale. Days have gone by and we still haven't heard what the imminent threat was, which you'd think the administration would give immediately if it had one. National security officials who've spoken with reporters have claimed that there was only general threats and the likelihood of an imminent threat was, quote, razor thin. And here's the thing, regardless of how bad of a guy Soleimani was, A, the American people have the right to know the truth about an action that could very well lead to war, that could lead to the loss of American lives, that could lead to another $1 trillion spent in the Middle East. As much as Trump thinks he can do whatever he wants, he's still a public servant and he's accountable to the people of this country. And B, again, while Soleimani might have been bad, if it was an illegal strike, if it was against international law, then we're ceding the moral standing we need to even make that argument. The fact is, international and domestic law is there for a reason. Laws are only effective insofar as we decide to follow them. So if the United States shows the world that it's willing to launch extrajudicial assassinations on people, what's to stop the rest of the world from doing the same and then pointing to the United States when they're called out for it? By the way, this is how we keep Americans safe too, by establishing respect for the rule of law. But if we decide that it's open season to kill anyone, then how could we possibly expect those who wish harm unto Americans to show restraint? But all of this is operating under the assumption that this administration cares for a second about the law, about our moral leadership, about anything other than jockeying for higher approval ratings so Trump can win a second term. The President of the United States is willing to destroy his political party, to further destabilize the Middle East, to put American lives and the United States economy at risk, to stoke a war and make it into a punchline at a rally, all for the sole purpose of helping himself in November. And if there was any doubt, he'll tell you himself, in front of a stadium full of people, because he simply can't help himself.